If you clicked on this video, you've probably heard of a little popular drink called matcha. Its sudden social media presence has taken the world by storm. Some people drink it for its rich floral taste, while others drink it for its numerous health benefits. Now, I had previously made a video talking about matcha, explaining the basic terms of the utensils and how to make a matcha latte. However, after a couple months of research, I realized that there were a lot of flaws in that video. For example, it was lacking information and there were also pronunciation issues. So because you guys deserve the best, I decided I was going to recreate that video but make it a whole lot better with better quality, more information, and overall a better vibe. So I invite you to stay as I cover everything you need to know about matcha. Let's start with the concept. Matcha is defined as a traditional type of tea that has its origins in Japan, and it's made of finely grounded green tea leaves. It's typically consumed in eastern regions of Asia, and these leaves have been collected during the first harvest of spring and have been laid in the shade for a few weeks. Now, the powder is completely dissolvable in liquid, and it was used in Japanese tea ceremonies in temples, and therefore what that should tell you is that it is part of a culture and it is a cultural symbol, and therefore it deserves its respect. Now, let's talk about matcha powders. So the first thing you have to know is that there are several grades to matcha, and the quality varies between each of them. So we're gonna start with lowest to best quality. The first one is culinary grade, and here I have an example of culinary grade matcha. The product is My Belief, and this is Peet's Coffee. So this is the lowest quality you can get in the market, and it tends to have a more bitter taste. So what that should tell you is that it is quite clearly not a good matcha. How you can identify culinary grade matcha is from its yellow tone. This yellow tone originates because the leaves have less chlorophyll, which is what makes good quality matcha this vibrant green color. Culinary grade matcha is produced from older leaves rather than the first harvest. So this could be second harvest, third harvest, etc., and so on. Obviously, there are still some uses to culinary grade matcha, for example, baking, cooking, and skincare. The next one, I don't have an actual powder that I can show you, but I do have a few clips from some that I have found on the supermarket. The next grade is blended matcha. So blended matcha is actually not 100% matcha. This one actually comes with sweeteners in it or with protein powders, and the point is that it comes with other ingredients in the mix. So I can't fully consider it matcha alone. This one also tends to be culinary grade matcha. It's simply mixed with the other ingredients that kind of take away a little bit of the bitterness. And finally, we have the best quality matcha, which is ceremonial grade. So ceremonial grade is known for its vibrant green color and its rich flavor. The leaves are exclusively first harvest, and this one actually goes through a very complicated process in order to make it. It is typically harvested in Uji, which is a region of Kyoto, but that doesn't mean that all ceremonial matchas will come from Uji. There are some good quality matchas that actually manage to be from other regions of Japan, but Uji is the one that is best known for its good quality matcha. Now, it is very important to check the label when you are looking for a ceremonial grade matcha, because there will always be some confusion that brands will try to create in order to get you to buy their matcha. For example, they will put something like high quality or super ceremonial in their labels as a way to try to get you to buy it. The term ceremonial and culinary matcha are literally just marketing techniques. They were created by Western society in order to differentiate which kind of matcha is good and which kind of matcha is bad. But in reality, terms like super ceremonial don't have any meaning. It is either ceremonial or not ceremonial. So, what are a few tips to help you identify what is an actual ceremonial matcha? The first one is to check the origins of the matcha. For example, if the matcha was not produced in Japan, it is most likely not a ceremonial grade matcha. This matcha that is actually culinary says finely grounded Japanese tencha leaves. And when you try to check the label for where this matcha was produced, there are no indications that it was actually produced in Japan. In fact, the only information information about where this matcha is coming from says distributed by Pete's Coffee in Emeryville, California. So there are no guarantees that this matcha was actually made in Japan. On the other hand, ceremonial grade matchas, like for example, this one by Little Match Studio, has this on the label. It says product of Japan and it says where it's distributed. Of course, you can always check the brand to know a little bit more about where the product is coming from. Like for example, if you go to Little Match Studio's website, you will actually be able to find that their products are 100% made in Japan and it is stated as it is on the website. And if you're still not sure if it is ceremonial grade matcha or not, there's also another indication, which is color. As I mentioned before, culinary grade matcha has a more yellowish tone and will have less green pigment due to the lack of chlorophyll. And ceremonial grade matcha will always have a vibrant green color. I will have some pictures up on the screen of what your pigment should look like, as well as a comparison of ceremonial versus culinary grade matcha. And the final indication is that the matcha powder contains no other ingredients than the powder itself. So for example, the ingredients here in the ceremonial grade matcha state that it is 100% matcha, and it actually contains the notes, but this does not mean that those ingredients were added onto the matcha powder. But if you look for another matcha that can be culinary grade, you might see a sweetener pop up and other chemicals that might affect the taste of the matcha, and that is a great indication that matcha powder is not ceremonial grade. Now we're gonna dig into the flavor. So the flavor of matcha can have a ton of qualities, and as I mentioned before, it varies between the brand and the product. Let's take for example the brand Ippodo Tea. They sell different types of matcha in their website, and while they are still ceremonial grade, these matcha powders can have subtle notes that will make it taste a little bit different from each other. It is totally up to the buyer which matcha is their favorite and which notes they like best. Let's take a look at the most important ones that you have to know. The first note that we can encounter is nuttiness. This one will give it subtle notes of almonds, toasted rice, and overall it is mostly a toasty flavor. And this is due to how much they toasted the leaves. The next one is floral notes, and this note consists of flavors that we can encounter like lavender, peas, and edamame. And this is typically due to the fact that the leaves that they used in the matcha are actually younger, which will make it taste a little bit more grassy. Next is sweetness. And now, it is important to know that when we evaluate sweetness, we are not counting any sweeteners that were added to the matcha. We are counting how naturally sweet the powder is. And finally, we have the umami. The umami is an enhancing quality that gives it kind of a salty aftertaste that only the best powders can actually achieve. The umami is actually a great quality that cancels out the bitterness in that matcha. And the less bitter a matcha is, the better in quality. All of these notes add to your personal drinking experience. My personal preference is a floral and sweet matcha. Make sure to leave your personal preference down in the comments below. So now we can get down to business and start making our matcha. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be making an iced matcha latte. But you can make a regular matcha, or you can follow another recipe that you might want to make. We're gonna start with our chawan. Chawan literally just means tea bowl. It is important that it is ceramic or porcelain and that it's not plastic, as the plastic usually does not help the matcha dissolve any better. So a lot of people use different shapes for the bowl, but this one is the one that's been working the best and has been proven to do so for more than 200 years. Next, we're gonna get our sifter and we're gonna put it right over the matcha bowl. Now we grab our measuring spoon, and the measuring spoon can be either made of steel or bamboo. The bamboo one is the one that is traditionally used in the tea ceremonies, but I prefer to use a steel one because it gives you an exact measurement. And the measurement is 1 cup of perfect matcha, also known as half a teaspoon. Now, for the next step, we can either make usucha or goicha. Usucha is thin tea, and what it means is that it will have more water and less powder, while koicha is the exact opposite, and it's actually considered more of a paste. This is the one that is typically drank in the tea ceremonies, and this one will require more matcha powder rather than water. I usually like to go for a stronger usucha. And for that, I will typically use a tiny bit more matcha powder in order to not make the flavor so faint. For regular matcha, I will usually add 2 grams or 1 teaspoon, but for lattes, I recommend adding a little bit more matcha powder just so that the flavor doesn't drown out with the milk. And how much should you add is around 2 teaspoons or 3 teaspoons. Now you're gonna use your whisk, which is known as a chasen. Your chasen can either be bamboo or plastic. However, I would not recommend having a plastic chasen because, as I mentioned before, plastic can create a very high contrast between how your matcha dissolves and it doesn't. And also, it can leave tiny microplastics in your matcha, and that can severely affect how it tastes. The one that I would recommend is made of a single bamboo piece. This one is the one that is traditionally used. Now, mine has seen better days. Mine should be out, and I should probably replace it soon, but right now we're gonna forget about that. So your chasen should be kept in a matcha whisk holder, which is this little thing that will make sure to keep the bristles in its place. Our next step would be softening the bristles, and how we do that is that we soak it in warm water for 30 seconds. Make sure that the water is not boiling and it's not too cold. And softening the bristles will once again help your matcha create microfoam. Your matcha should always be creating foam at the top when you're whisking it, but microfoam is the best quality foam and it will make your matcha taste significantly better. Now we're gonna add our water. I would usually add around 60 to 90 milliliters of water, but I'm gonna use 100 since I am making a latte. When you whisk, you want to make sure that you first whisk in a circular motion and then you start whisking in a W motion for around 30 seconds. And once you stop whisking, you have your matcha done. Now, you can either pour it over more water or milk to create a latte, which is what I'm going to be doing. I am going to be showing you guys the latte recipe, which is what I personally like the most, and I could say that it is somewhat perfect. So our next step to prepare a latte is going to be to grab our cup. So you want to make sure that your cup is ideally not too big because the ratio is going to be kind of messed up. Now we're going to ice to the top. Now that it's iced, we're going to add our milk. And you want to add about 3/4 to the top. Milk will heavily impact the flavor of matcha, so I recommend that you choose your milk wisely. I would usually add dairy milk because I feel like that's what I'm used to, but I'm going to be adding oat milk this time, which is my second favorite choice. Another popular choice is soy milk because it brings the floral flavor of the matcha, but almond milk is not so popular because it doesn't pair well with the flavor of matcha. And personally, it's also not my favorite, so I can't really tell you that it tastes good with matcha, so. Now, another thing we can do here is add our sweetener. And our sweetener has to be very specifically chosen because some sweeteners will drown the flavor of matcha. My personal favorite pick is agave, but another popular pick is maple syrup. Those two, because of the consistency and the flavor, actually bring out very nice subtle tastes to the matcha. Brown sugar and white sugar don't dissolve well with your drinks. And even sugars like Splenda that were made to dissolve will actually sweeten your matcha a little bit too much. And now that we've added our sweetener, we're going to add our matcha to the cup. So our matcha is officially done. My favorite part has to be the marbling. I just feel like it's so magical and it just looks so cool. So delicious actually. If this video has been helpful to you, I recommend that you like this video if you want more videos like this, and also comment down below your personal favorite matcha recipes and your favorite matcha brands. And of course, if you want to support me, make sure to subscribe, make sure to check out the rest of my videos, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!